Okay, Miss Elana, we are live today,
Yay.
and I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm
Um,
excited to be here.
awesome. So, Elana, you are head, right, of partnerships, director of partnerships at Total Health Oncology, the great company that we work for. And so today, I want you to tell us, how do you get to Total Health? You know, what circumstances led you there, and what do you do for Total Health Oncology?
Well, I could actually start. First of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Um, I think actually it's a little story how I got to Total Health almost 10 years ago, and it's part of building relationships and partnerships. And I think that's why this is such a great question to ask me. That I met Sarah when I was working, who's our CEO of and founder of Total Health. We met at a meeting that she was putting on probably 10 years ago
Mm,
in Puerto Rico, I believe it was. And I was working for as a vice president of marketing and new markets for an international healthcare company. And I was looking for opportunities, and I came across this idea of this meeting that was taking place in Puerto Rico, and it said, please call Sarah Loudon. And there was a phone number at that point, and there may have been an email. And I called and I called and I emailed and I emailed. And Sarah will probably tell you I harassed her. And I finally got a hold of her, actually sponsored her meeting in Puerto Rico and brought a few other people along with me to sponsor it. And it was the beginning of a 10-year relationship and friendship. And I had a different job, different career, same career, different company. Sarah was doing that. And about a year ago, I was looking for something to do. And a year and a half ago, and I called Sarah, she goes, "You're kidding." She goes, "I need you. I need you." And at that point, she had me interview with her team, and I joined Total Health as their director of partnerships.
that is a great story. And you know, when you mentioned that you first met Sarah 10 years ago, right?
That's
And you
right.
called and you were probably kind of like harassed or whatever. But here's the thing about partnerships, right? And especially when you're looking for those real strategic partners, you have to be persistent, because your persistence 10 years ago allowed you to have this great position right now as director of partnerships for Total Health. And so, having met Sarah in that environment, she could then connect that, oh, wait a second, I have some history with this person. That's one of the key things about partnerships, and I want us to go into some more. So that's a great story. I want to educate our audience, right? Because we've done the power of collaboration on this show before. But partnerships are huge, because as we are launching these new initiatives, you and I were looking for partners, strategic partners, all types of partners. And so I want you to give our audience three strategies, right, that you've employed over your career that you feel are the most effective in landing those long term relationships.
It's actually an easy question. um, I
Says
love
the
that.
pro. Says the pro.
Yeah. Let me just say, and I think the most important thing is relationships, the power of relationships. And if this is the best thing I can teach, is people.
Mhm.
Relationships are all based on people. And if you can connect, and I think I start with three things that are so important to me. I have to listen, I have to learn, and I have to be open. And I think if you can take those, any one of those, that you can build an incredible network, relationships, and partnerships. And I'm going to tell you just a really quick story, three
Mhm.
really quick, tiny stories, and interrupt me at any point.
Sure.
I just went, and so I'm older than some of the members of our team, who maybe many of them who are just graduated high school or college today. And I was telling them a story that I actually just a few weeks ago went on a girls' trip with friends from elementary school, from middle school, and high school. And that in itself is, to me, life changing. Those relationships, and I look at Sarah's as a long-term relationship at 10 years, but I look at those kind of friendships, relationships, partnerships who continue to make, roles in my life, inroads in my life. And that was incredible, the longevity. And I think don't take for granted some of those people that you meet along the way. Collect them. They're so
Right.
important. And I think the other thing, and I'll tell you, is to be open. And
Yeah.
it's a great story. I went to the University of Florida many moons ago, and I remember I had a lot of friends, sororities, all those kinds of things. And I came home, graduated, and then you kind of go back to your reality of outside of your bubble. And I got married, I was pregnant, I went to Lamaze class. And years ago, you actually went to a class. I think they do them on Zoom today, or you watch on YouTube, or still the same thing, giving birth. But I went there and I saw somebody who looked a little familiar in the class. And I couldn't remember, she was, and then all of a sudden I go, I think that was the super popular, beautiful girl who was always at the pool at my apartment complex at University of Florida. We knew each other, but weren't really, friends. And I took that leap of faith and I walked over to her at Lamaze. It was the only person that looked like I could connect to. Don't know why, had a conversation. And I will tell you, 30 plus years later, we are the best of friends. Our husbands are the best of friends. That relationship, our children are the best of friends, life changing. And so that ability to be open and not like, oh, I knew her then, or today, we have all those things with Mean Girls or different things. And I couldn't go on social media to see if we had, quote, mutual friends. We do that all the time. I had to just take that leap of faith and talk to her.
That's so neat. And you've mentioned the word connecting several times. And I know Peter, who was on our show last week, has a question for you. But before we answer Peter's question, you mentioned connect and listen quite a bit. And I want you to speak to that business owner, that entrepreneur, that company who they're now at the stage where they're saying to themselves, we want to expand, we want to grow, we want to engage some partners. Right. And Peter's asking about your superpowers. So what would you tell that? How would they start? How you mentioned collecting information, collecting data, when you meet people along the way, collect. You mentioned collect, connect, listen. So give them one tip. Like if they're sitting there and they're watching this show and they say, well, partnership, I hear about partnerships and collaborations all the time. Where do I start? Where do I start?
I think actually it goes back to being open and to listening. I can't stress that enough. And it's very interesting. And I think the thing for me, like when, Peter, you say a superpower, it's just that ability to walk into a room and find somebody or see somebody, whether you like the shirt they're wearing or a book that's sitting next to them that they're reading, or literally what they're eating for lunch. And I have found that over the ways, I worked with, I actually had an incredible opportunity to learn many of these skills from a gentleman named Congressman William Lehman, who was a congressman in South Florida. When I met Bill Lehman, he was 50 years older than me, 50 years. And,
Wow.
I was in my early 20s. He was in his 70s. He had retired. He had a stroke. And he was looking, he said, never retire. So here he was, he had a massive stroke. He came back to the university to work with me and some of the work we were doing in automobile safety. And he took me to Washington. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. And he took me to Washington with him. And he said, we got in an elevator. In those years, you literally had elevator people who in Washington, they may still have them in the Rayburn building that take you up and down. He knew their names. He knew their kids. He knew how they liked their coffee. He said, she's as important to you as the admin for the senator that you're going to walk into and meet with me next week. And he said, listen to them, get to know them. Every one of them are important and they have value. And I think that really is the superpower. Don't dismiss and you're just looking for that CEO, because it's not that CEO, it's the admin. It's the receptionist who's going to let you in the door. It's going to, somebody that looks like they've had a bad day, bring them a cup of coffee. It changes the way you work with people and interact. We, for many of maybe our team who's listening, we just had one of our employees who went to the Taylor Swift concert, and she was a giant Swiftie. And today we asked her, the team, we asked her, how did she have fun? And she was so excited that we cared enough about her to ask. So some of it's very simple. It's not complicated. It's really listening, being open, taking an interest in people. And I think most importantly, Sharon, you said something, it's connecting dots. It's the skill set of connecting dots.
You also said something too, Elana, that I think is very interesting. You didn't use these words, but what you described was finding common ground. You said you walk into a room, look at what shirt they're wearing, what are they doing, who are they sitting beside, and that is called finding common ground. Because sometimes a person say, "I'm shy, I don't know how to start a conversation." Look for the common ground. Are they wearing earrings that's similar to yours? Are they wearing a shirt that you like? Find common ground and start there. It's not that complicated.
It really isn't.
It really isn't. And
it really isn't.
It goes back to what you said about and Sarah Post said, find something that connects you to someone. It goes back to what you were saying about being open, right? And listening. If you are going to be a person who, who's looking to partner with others, if you're not open, forget it. So finding that common ground and finding a place, a point of connection. Now, Peter said, I'm going to put his question back up here. He said, what drives you the most about Total Health's mission?
Great question, Peter. There is nothing more exciting for being, at least at this point in my career and all throughout my career, is to sinking my teeth into a project that I loved and that I was compassionate about. And I think we had a team call this morning, and I've been a big fan of Gary Vee, and I was listening to him, and he said, you don't have to, if you're in most jobs, there's a component of sales, right? Whether you're actually selling a product or you're selling a concept or an idea or getting people to join you on your mission. It's when you're compassionate about it and you care about it. You do not have to sell anything. You're committed. People will feel that. It's never about convincing somebody. You want someone to jump on and be part of your bandwagon and be part of your movement. And I think if you can do that today, and it's funny going back, you're talking about connections. We didn't have, the same social media platforms that we have today. And I embrace that. I'm DMing people all the time. I'm on LinkedIn asking people to connect with me. If I see a commonality, if I see they're working on a certain project, if they are the head of HR for their cancer center, I am reaching out to each and every one of those people to, form a connection, a relationship, have someone to ask an idea, learn about their company, learn about ours.
In your position, you mentioned Gary Vee talks about being compassionate, but I'm going to take out the comp part out of it, and I'm just going to stay with the passionate, because in your position, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's easy to feel deflated. And this is the question that Sarah asks right now, and I'm going to put it on the screen. She says, how do you handle rejection? How do you stay positive and try again? And it goes back to my point about passion, because when you talk about calling people and bringing them coffee and doing all of this stuff, if this is a mere job for you, it would be grunt work, wouldn't it?
That's
it would be
right.
grunt work. It would be like, who wants to do this grunt work? But you approach that work not like, okay, I got to call again. I got to bring coffee. I got to do this. You approach this work as this is going to be great. But how do you stay positive and how do you handle rejection? Because that comes with the territory, right?
Of course. I think in general, I'm lucky. I'm a positive person. I am never giving up. I am going to convince that person. I am going to keep calling. I mean, if Sarah was on the phone right now or on the screen, she would be saying she was a pain in my, I kept calling and calling. And I think there's something to be said. I am always, it's interesting, and in my years, I've been pursued too, to buy something or purchase something. And I will tell you, there's some sales statistics, like you can call once, nothing, tens. I think it's like 15 times that you have to make a call till somebody will call you back. And that may even be low. I mean, there's some statistics
Mhm.
out there will tell you how many calls, but I think, Sharon, because I'm so passionate and I've been so blessed truly with the few jobs, and I've only had a handful of jobs in my life, that I have been passionate about each and every one of them, and I sink my teeth into it. And I'm not giving up till I, solve it or get an answer. And it may be a rejection, but at least I know that I've tried.
That's right. And Peter, one of your colleague, he said he's never seen you with seen you with a frown on your face. And it goes back again to again being passionate
Thank
about
you.
what you do, being open about what you do,
And
being willing to learn
excited.
and excited, and it definitely shows up in how we conduct ourselves, right? Let me ask you another question. I have two more questions for you. Where does one draw the line between harassment and persistence when it comes to trying to engage partners? And that's, again, that's the work that you do. That's the work that I do as well, as we're looking to engage community partners to help
That's
us with
right.
our mission, right? So where do we draw the line between harassment and persistence?
Well, we're professionals, so we typically don't harass. We try not to.
Right.
But I would say, Sharon, there are times we have to deal with rejection too. That there are people that are not going to be on our bandwagon, that aren't as interested in some of the things that we're talking about or living through. And so those people, sometimes I put them on a shelf, they're there, and sometimes I wait, sometimes I come back. And and when you do this long enough, there's always another way to connect with them. There's always something that brings you back. I hadn't worked with this young woman at the university. She was an intern when I was there, and hadn't talked with her, oh my God, probably in 15 years. And I was on LinkedIn and I saw her, and we had tried to do things over the years and it didn't. And I told her what we were doing at Total Health, and it was like boom, like
Yeah,
all of a sudden, anything that didn't work before, she goes, oh my God, tell me more, I'm interested. And so it's important to be able to, yes, weather the storm and be able to take rejection. Look, I'm disappointed sometimes when they don't want to fund a project, or they're not interested in answering my phone call. But if you do it with kindness and you give them a purpose, usually you can swing them around a little bit.
I agree. I just want to remind people, because I know salespeople know this. When people say no, they're not saying no to you, right? They're
That's
saying
right.
no to your mission. They're saying no to your product or to your service, not to you. So, we tend to take it personally, but it's not personal. Second thing
That's
I want
right.
to point out from what you said too, with the people who reject you right now, they may be your greatest partner later on,
That,
right? So,
that's right.
especially, you and I talked about this recently, Elana. We are grant writers, right? So obviously, you got to write 10 grants to get one. We know the statistics. So you get 9 rejections, but that's this year. You could go back again next year and the following year and the following year, and one of those years it could be a yes. So again, rejection. You collect your rejection list and you put them aside, right? Because they may be a prospect, continue to be a prospect list. Let me see. Sarah says, great part. Rejection is part of our work. Remain professional and approach from a different angles. Might not be the right time, right project, but
That's
later
right.
there may be different. I met up with a gentleman online over the weekend, an executive who was a funder for a charity, from a previous charity. And we haven't been in contact for about maybe 6 years. But right away, when he saw something I did, it was an instant connection. And the first thing we said, let's have coffee to continue our conversations. That was 6 years ago. So before one last point before we leave, how has partnership benefited the work that you do now, with Total Health? How has your work, your role, how has that added value to our mission?
It took a while. It took, a few months to try to understand it wasn't just about bringing, people in. Part of the job was to increase attendance, is just sort of recruitment. But the partnership component of it has become so important, building those, whether it's at an academic institution, and if you look at academic institutions, there's multiple offices in there. So I had to learn to slowly, whether it's a fellowship office, a residency office, a nursing office, a marketing office. I think that, and then there was advocacy groups out there that we needed to bring in to share information with us, and those that were sharing our information, different partners. POCN was a partner, ViewMedi was a partner. They were out there, we were giving them data, but I spent some time reeling them in and creating relationships. That led to us doing additional webinars for POCN, which is the Point of Care Network, which is a huge network for advanced practitioners, APPs, nurse practitioners. That is beginning to expand. It's not just putting, a trailer on their headline or something like that, or an email. We're now building together and expanding our outreach. So partnerships take time. Relationships, it's one at a time. Relationships turn to partnerships. And I think that's the most important thing.
Great point. Our fearless leader, Sarah, she is, I consider her to be a great connector as well. She has the ability to connect people. And she said, you saw what she says, to have the gift of working with you on our mission. And Sarah, we are blessed to have you in our lives because, as I've said on the show before, Sarah and I go back 30 years through a relationship.
You beat me.
Right? But, again, one thing I would just say again to the audience who will be watching, when you are in any type of negotiation with partners, potential partners, please, if you get to a stalemate, don't walk away angry. Always keep it professional, because you may meet that person like I met with Sarah 30 years later, or you met with Sarah 10 years later. Always, always, always leave at a high note. Leave the discussion, leave the communication at a high vibrating positive energy level, because you never know when you have to re-engage with that partner. And so we will leave it at that. We like to give our guest the final word on our show, Elana. So T Talks is about, T cells. That was Sarah's idea. T cells make us happy, keep us healthy, and all these wonderful things. So it's Monday morning or Monday afternoon. We'd like to leave our audience with just one happy thought. What would that be?
Talk to anybody. Talk to anybody that you come and meet with. Talk to your barista, your front desk, the Uber driver. I can't tell you how many random people I have met in my life just by talking.
Sarah, that's a quotable one, Sarah. Talk to everybody and anybody. There's no one too low, no one too high. You never know who the doorkeepers are in these relationships. Elana, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on at short notice and for sharing your wonderful insights with us. And thank you so much. I know on behalf of Sarah and myself, for the work that you do for us at Total Health, and for the example that you are to the rest of the team. We thank you so much. All right, until next time, see you guys back here on Wednesday. We have a special guest on Wednesday, Rick Tyler. He's doing some great things in oncology, and we would love for you to join us again.
Thank you.